For decades, doctors told us the secret to health was plants, fiber, and avoiding fat. But the data tells a completely different story. So let's break that myth. Here we go. This is a roasting sacred cows with nutrition video. Um, Essentially, it's mainstream medicine got it wrong. The real science behind ketogenic diets. So, what happens here? I got a friendly troll, still a troll, but a friendly troll, to my latest video on do you really need fiber? And this is what his comment was. Mark B, right? Very sad. I'm sad. Right? The longest living, healthiest humans on our planet consume greater than 70% of their food is whole plant food, complete with lots of natural fiber. Ooh. The largest and longest ever health study, longevity study, the Okinawan Centenarian Study of hundreds of Okinawans of 80, 90, 100 years old for 25 years proves this beyond a doubt. Now, see, this is where I start getting upset about this stuff. Proves beyond a doubt. And he doesn't even have the actual study. He doesn't know what the actual study says. Your statements do not align with the new science of gut health. Ooh, there's a new science of gut health, really. Okay? And the WHO, the World Health Organization, and we really trust the WHO, because remember, they wanted you to take the COVID shots and all that stuff. Okay, so keep that in mind. Said that chronic gut inflammation, the greatest threat to human health. Couldn't find that specific quote, but that's okay. Right now, check out the ridiculous epidemics of type 2 diabetes, early dementia, those people under 50, cancers in the Western world, yes, and Dr. John Tickle, international chronic disease researcher with 100 countries, 15-year brain cancer survivor. Okay. I did. Guess what I found? Very, very different stuff. So the carnivore creatures, is their actual life expectancy? Because he was typing quickly, so I don't expect him to necessarily get the spelling correct. And he was Dr. John T. Okay, so, well, let's break this down, because this is pretty natural stuff from the trolls. Nothing of consequence, doesn't even know the studies he's quoting from, right? And let's look into this. So, first of all, the WHO identifies non-communicable diseases, not chronic gut inflammation, as the greatest global health burden. And you can go to their website, the World Health Organization, to confirm this. Now, once again, I don't trust the WHO as far as I could throw them, right? The World Health Organization is a political hack organization, right, who are trying to put everyone under one world government control, especially for their health, right? So, but to get that quote wrong is quite amazing, right? Okay, so the World Health Organization position is that non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, chronic lung disease, are the leading cause of death globally. And yes, I absolutely agree with the WHO on that one, because the statistics are very clear. That's not a synonym for chronic gut inflammation. And the WHO's material don't use that phrase as a global threat statement. Once again, I invite you to go to the WHO website at all. So, red herring. It's a red herring argument. Okay. Talk about the Okinawan longevity. Okay, the Okinawa longevity study does not prove beyond a doubt that greater than 70% plant intake is the key to longevity. The lead investigators, once again, you can go to the study, and you can find it on researchgate.com. The lead investigators of the Okinawan Centenarian work themselves. So the lead investigators, right, themselves emphasize lifelong caloric restriction, low BMI, and high physical activity as central characteristics of the long-lived cohort, not fiber alone. The 2007 analysis documents a low-energy sweet potato-based diet, over half of calories historically, and explicitly notes that the mortality advantage has all but disappeared except in older cohorts. And remember, when you're talking about people who are in their 80s, 90s, 100 years old, you're talking about World War II survivors, okay? And what they ate as young adults may not be very um, uh, something you can actually carry into long-term studies. Okay, to understand this. Okay. Uh, the other thing is that this is not timeless. It's a plant percentage magic trick, right? It's observational data that they can't do anything to prove causality. Okay. In addition to that, Okinawa is one of those blue zones, and I did a whole series of videos debunking the blue zone claims. Okay? Because what they don't tell you here is that Okinawans eat a lot of pork, and they eat a lot of fish as well, because Okinawa is this beautiful island in the middle of the Pacific. Okay? So their meat consumption is quite high, actually. Okay? It's not like they're just living on sweet potatoes. They're not. Okay? So you really have to keep that in mind. The other thing is that because Okinawa was an occupied island from the Empire of Japan, it's part of Japan, but remember, it was occupied by the military during World War II, which is when most of these people might have potentially been alive, right? Once again, people who are 80, 90, and 100 years old, right? The records are not necessarily the greatest there, so I wouldn't make large-scale dietary claims about poor record keeping on a very small island where the claims that they're eating 70% or better from vegetables is absolutely wrong, right? I happen to know from personal experience, having relatives who are Japanese and Okinawan, that boy, the amount of meat that they eat is very high. Okay, so let's just leave it at that. Okay, let's talk about carb restriction, because one of the attacks is inherently against ketogenic and carnivore type diets. So, the American Diabetes Association consensus report recognizes low and very low carbohydrate diets as a viable option to improve A1C, the type 2 diabetes epidemic. Because the underlying cause of type 2 diabetes overall is going to be insulin resistance caused by eating too many carbs. Okay? And you could be eating all the organic sweet potatoes you want. Those are still carbs, and those are still going to affect you the same as any other carb in your gut. Okay, there are quite a few randomized controlled trials on type 2 diabetes that show sustained A1C reductions, weight loss, and major medication reduction on well-supported ketogenic programs. Okay, and I point you to the Virta studies, which show nearly 100% of the 1,000 plus people who've gone through the Virta program for 12 months, nearly 100% reduction in their type 2 diabetes with, and I'm sorry, I don't have this down here. I think it's 75% are off their meds. Okay, significant control, eating a low carb, high meat diet. Okay. And in 2021, the British Medical Journal meta-analysis showed low-carb diets can induce remission in a subset of patients at 6 months. Right? I would go to the Virta studies myself. Okay, and I apologize I didn't include them in this chart. My fault. All right, gut health, right, which is the whole idea of eating fiber, does not equate that could with the with anti-inflammatory benefits. In fact, if anything, gut health is very inflammatory. Okay, or eating fiber is very inflammatory to the gut. Okay, so nutritional ketosis, right, produces an anti-inflammatory benefits, right, in the gut. Now, fiber, and this is the case here. So we want to go to a Lancet meta-analysis from 2019. Found that at a population level, so if you take a population that is eating primarily a high carbohydrate diet, fiber can be very helpful for them because they're eating the wrong diet to begin with, right? But the Lancet study also pointed out that fiber is not an essential nutrient. That's why there's an AI, not an RDA. If you want to know what an AI is, go to the actual video. I have the, we'll define that precisely. That there is no defined deficiency disease for not eating enough fiber or eating any fiber at all, right? In specific conditions, constipation subtypes, IBS and IBD, individual responses to fiber vary widely, and some patients improve on a lower fiber protocol. In fact, in a Harvard study from a couple years ago of several hundred people who are on a keto carnivore diet, they all showed improvement in their gut health. So we have the studies behind us, okay? Beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is the ketone body that you develop when you're eating a ketogenic diet, is a signaling metabolite that directly inhibits the NLRP3 inflammasome, right, which is a core driver of inflammatory issues in the gut. Now, once again, a ketogenic carnivore diet is very anti-inflammatory. And the doctor here was talking about how inflammation in the gut was the key problem. Well, then you want to eat a diet that cuts down your inflammation in your gut, okay? And ketogenic patterns have shown to shift the microbiome and reduce intestinal Th17 cell-linked inflammation in controlled settings. So once again, there's a couple Lancet studies that point this out. They're very small studies. You got to keep that in mind. But there's evidence that fiber is just absolutely not necessary. And eating actually a ketogenic and carnivore diet is the way your body was designed. And I go into that in my you don't need fiber videos. And the doctor obviously didn't watch them very thoroughly, or if at all. Because you look at the way your gut is designed, right? What the GI tract of the human body is. It's not designed to eat fiber. Okay. He appealed to humans. What was the lifespan? And I think he's trying to tell me, because he didn't spell it out. But I think what he's trying to do there is say, hey, look at the average lifespan of a Paleolithic human was probably 35 years old. Right? And I've seen that number repeatedly. What you don't understand is that anyone born, 150 years earlier than us, probably all died earlier if you took the average. And this is where statistics really comes into play. You have to understand confounding statistics. If a large number of your population died early in childbirth, died as infants early on, up to about age 2, from communicable diseases, right? You have poor sanitation, you have chronic disease management, right? And access to healthcare was significantly lower. Well, guess what? People that tended to die as children. That's why a lot of earlier civilizations definitely emphasized having a lot of children, because some of them died in childbirth, or they died in infancy and such, right? And that skews all the numbers as far as what's the average lifespan, right? You take 1,000 people and 100 of them die as infants. Well, that's going to skew it all, right? Well, guess what? Based on anthropological evidence, once they got past like 16, excluding those who died from violence and stuff like that, people lived a long time, right? Paleolithic mankind certainly lived quite a long time. So you gotta keep your statistics in mind. You gotta understand what an average and a median is, and all that sort of stuff, and understand confounding variables in looking at statistics. And the good doctor's just quoting stuff that he's heard, but he doesn't have the statistics background to say that the average human life span was so short because they all died at 35. No, they didn't. Right? A whole bunch died as infants and from early childhood diseases, and that skews the whole data. Okay, and once again, you can't look at that data and think that it means anything to what we're trying to talk about here, which is not lifespan. Lifespan is important, but it's what provides optimal health to the human body, and that in itself will help you live a much longer, vibrant life. Okay, so let's be fair here, and let's give you a balanced perspective on keto and plant-based diet, right? So, on average, for a population as a whole that is eating a plant-based diet, or is eating a very heavy plant-based diet, and right now people who are eating the standard diet in North America and in much of Europe, they're probably getting 200 grams, 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrates in their diet every day, and they're eating a lot of fiber, right? On those people, high fiber and here's the key, and minimally processed plant foods correlate with lower risk in free living populations, okay? Now, you can also look at Adventists, the Seventh-day Adventists, and I have a whole bunch of series on SDAs, cohorts, and they show a modest mortality advantage for vegetarian patterns, right? But there are important lifestyle confounders you got to take into account there. So, if you thrive on that, great. Just understand that may not be optimal health. That may just be longevity. And we visit a lot of old age homes, and that is not optimal in my mind, okay? Where the ketogenic and carnivore diets excel is in the epidemic we have currently around the world of insulin resistance across multiple phenotypes, and tightly limiting carbohydrates and reliably normalizes your postprandial glycemia. Often reduce, if not eliminate, the need for medications, including insulin for these people. Lowers liver fat, improves triglycerides and HDL, can place type 2 diabetes into remission with a 2 to 5 year durability in real-world supervised programs. Once again, if you're looking for something you want some evidence from, look at the Verta studies. Okay, so once again, we're looking at optimization, and if you are in that group of people who have one of the metabolic markers is you have extra waist size, right? You have triglyceride HDL levels ratios are completely out of whack, right? You have hyperinsulinemia, which means that you're constantly pumping out insulin to deal with all the carbohydrates you're eating, right? Your blood sugar is nowhere stabilized, and it's excessively high all the time, which is why you have hyperinsulinemia, right? If you're in that group, and that group accounts for the vast majority of people around the world, and definitely in North America and Europe, guess what? A ketogenic carnivore diet is exactly what you need to help reverse that. Eating a lot of fiber doesn't help that at all. If you're essentially healthy, yeah, the fiber may help, but it doesn't, okay? And let's talk about fiber and the colon. Okay, population data support fiber for many people, but it's not biologically essential. So if you're eating the wrong foods in the first place, fiber does seem to help. Okay, and I'm going to be fair, yeah. If you're eating the wrong types of food, fiber can help. It doesn't cure the problems of eating the wrong types of foods. And you can eat all the fiber you want, and you still have type 2 diabetes, you still have triglycerides, excessive, you can fatty liver disease, right, and all those things that are chronic right now because you're eating too much carbohydrates, and fiber is a carbohydrate. Okay, that's all it is. Well, then guess what? It's a non-essential dietary nutrient. Maybe that's what's causing the problems, though, is all the carbohydrates you're eating. Okay, and when you're talking about inflammation, ketosis provides anti-inflammatory signaling. We talked about beta-hydroxybutyrate in this video, and it's NLRP3 inhibition. And if you're worried about inflammation, you should be if you're eating a lot of carbs, then guess what? Don't eat any more carbs. Okay? And I also asked the good doctor, show me one actual real causation study that shows that eating a lot of fiber helps you. Okay? And I point you back to, how is the human gut, my gut GI tract designed? Is it designed to eat non-digestible fiber? Or is it designed to eat fat and protein? Anyone who's taken physiology in high school or college, go back and look at your GI tract designs and look at it. Are we more closely aligned with a carnivore GI tract or with an herbivore like a cow or a sheep? And it's a range, and I know it's a range, and I know humans can survive on plant foods. Though, is it optimal? And what I'm looking for is optimal. Okay? So, all that being said and done, thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead, please leave them in the appropriate section. This video was a response to a comment. So, once again, if you have comments, pro or con, bring them on. I love it. I learn more from people who are telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, which is great. Thank you so much. Bring it in. It allows me to do more research to find the right answers for you. We're here to provide answers to people, to give you education, right? Let me know what you're working on and what you need. And as always, if you haven't done so and you've gotten this far, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend. It helps the channel a great deal. Thank you very much. And it does help a lot of other people.